So what if the most surprising, really actionable insights for navigating change, for pursuing your goals, what if they came from, well, unexpected
Yeah,
places?
places like, sure, cutting-edge analysis on artificial intelligence, but maybe also from the mind of a legendary science fiction writer from, decades ago.
Exactly. And that's what we're exploring in this deep dive. We're digging into material. You provided some sources looking at the future of AI and humanity side by side, and also these fascinating notes from an interview with Dr. Isaac Asimov.
Our mission, really, is to take this pile of knowledge and pull out the most potent nuggets, the surprising bits.
Yeah, the practical takeaways you can use, like right now as you're charting your course in a world that's increasingly shaped by tech, sure, but also by those, timeless things, personal ambition, growth.
So we'll basically look at two core areas.
Okay.
First, we'll dive into a modern perspective on truly integrating AI,
Yeah.
into our lives and work in a way that feels maybe collaborative, growth-oriented.
Oh.
And then we'll kind of shift gears and unlock Asimov's unique views, insights on education, success, what really fuels diligence, all drawn from that interview.
All right, let's jump into that first area then. The material focusing on AI. One perspective that jumps out right away frames AI not just as a tool, but as something sparking, well, a fundamental turning point for humanity.
It really does. And central to navigating that turning point, according to one source anyway, is this concept they call AI fusion mastery.
AI fusion mastery. Okay, that sounds intense, but what's the core idea here based on what you've seen in these sources?
Well, what's fascinating is how it reframes the whole relationship. It's not about mastering AI as some separate skill,
Right.
or just focusing solely on mastering yourself. The really potent idea from the sources is that the real power comes from deliberately fusing the mastery of both.
Both.
Mastering yourself and mastering how to grow with AI. And crucially, doing this simultaneously.
Simultaneously. Okay, that feels like the key twist there. The source uses these analogies that really capture it, like thinking of it as two hands washing each other, or forming a genuine team where you and your AI partner are, like, playing to your unique strengths.
Yeah, that really flips the script on the usual AI for productivity hack stuff, doesn't it?
Totally.
It suggests your personal growth isn't just, a nice to have. It's actually foundational to how effectively you can even use and evolve with the AI.
So it's about getting skilled in the art and science of AI and the art and science of becoming, well, more of who you are.
Exactly.
So how does this idea of fusing challenge the common narrative then? What does it mean beyond just saying use AI?
It means viewing the tech as like a co-pilot for your own evolution.
Yeah.
It's active, it's deliberate.
Okay.
The source connects this perspective to figures like Mike Hayes, someone with, deep experience blending media, tech, and these very human-centered ideas like voice, story, soul. So the approach isn't just theoretical. It's driven by a mission to help people navigate this moment by focusing on that dual mastery, merging that inner growth with the outer tech capability.
Okay, so it's a compelling framework. Definitely. But how is this AI fusion mastery actually being put into practice, according to the sources, I mean? Are there tangible examples?
Yeah, the sources mentioned some practical applications. One is the use of AI audibles.
AI audibles.
You can think of them as hyper-personalized, AI-generated audio insights, tailored from information you provide.
Oh, so like speed learning on steroids?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
But the actionable insight here is that it's speed learning framed specifically to accelerate your own understanding, your personal growth journey. It's AI serving the mastery of self side of that equation.
Got it. Okay. And then there's something larger mentioned, a collaborative space, the Great Discovery AI Supercampus.
That's right. It's described as a free collaborative space, a place, maybe virtual, maybe physical, focused on applying AI to areas like storytelling, business networking, lifelong learning.
Okay, but the crucial element, the thing that ties it back to fusion mastery, is that it's all geared towards that central mission, growing with AI and doing it together, in a community.
Ah, okay.
Absolutely. The sources really emphasize the importance of partnership with the AI, yeah, sure, but also partnership with other people learning alongside you in that community. And even partnership with, like, a sense of deeper calling or purpose, understanding the why behind your growth journey.
That really does shift the conversation, doesn't it? We so often focus on AI automating tasks or boosting efficiency. This perspective suggests we should also be asking, how can AI be a teammate in helping me become more of who I'm meant to be?
Which leads to maybe the most resonant idea from this material, I think, that the biggest discovery happening right now isn't just about what AI can do, externally.
Okay.
What is it?
And this is their phrasing, it's about the future of you.
Yeah.
Becoming more of who you're meant to be together with AI. Yeah. The actionable takeaway here is that the real frontier isn't just developing AI, it's developing yourself in concert with AI.
Wow. That's a powerful way to put it. It really integrates AI into the very personal journey of self-discovery. Makes you stop and think about your relationship with technology on a much, much deeper level.
It truly does. So if you take that idea seriously, that becoming more of who you're meant to be is a journey you take with AI as a teammate, how does that fundamentally shift how you view the technology you interact with every day? What does using AI even mean if it's primarily a tool for your personal evolution? It's definitely something worth sitting with.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now let's turn the page from the future of AI itself to, well, a classic perspective on human potential and success. What if some of the most useful insights for navigating your own path, your career, education, even just thinking about the future, didn't come from, say, a typical business guru?
Right, not the usual suspects at all, but from one of the greatest science fiction writers ever. Someone who spent his life thinking about future worlds and, well, the humans in them. It's a fascinating pivot, isn't it?
It really is.
We often look to tech leaders or economists for answers about the future, but Asimov was literally building future worlds in his mind for decades.
Exactly. And that's the heart of this next part of our deep dive. We've been looking through these notes from an interview Mike Hayes did with, yes, the legend himself, Dr. Isaac Asimov.
And it's quite a conversation, touching on topics that feel incredibly current, actually, even though the interview happened, some time ago.
So we're pulling out his perspectives on everything from potential laws for AI, drawing on his famous laws of robotics, of course.
Which is pretty remarkable, given when he wrote them.
Absolutely. All the way to his surprisingly practical thoughts on education, what actually drives success, and even the mechanics of how he was just so incredibly prolific. Our mission here is really to extract the key lessons, the wisdom for you listening, things you might find directly applicable to your own life.
Okay, so let's start where the source material does, connecting Asimov's fictional world to our very real present.
Yeah.
His 3 laws of robotics and their relevance for AI today.
Yeah, the interview uses his 3 laws as a starting point. The ones from his stories that became so incredibly influential, even way outside of sci-fi circles.
Right, and just a quick recap from the notes. First, a robot may not injure a human being, or through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm.
Okay.
Second, a robot must obey orders given by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
Right.
And third, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law.
It is kind of wild, isn't it, how these rules designed for fictional robots decades ago feel like such a necessary starting point for talking about governing real AI today. What does it tell us that his work became this framework?
Well, it shows the power of imagination, really. Asimov didn't predict the specific tech we have now, not exactly, but he explored the fundamental human-machine relationship and its potential dangers. The actionable insight here, I think, is that creative thinking, even in fiction, can provide these essential ethical or structural frameworks for future realities we haven't even fully built yet. He basically gave us a language to start thinking about AI safety way before AI was anything like it is now.
Using imagination to explore complex future problems before they hit us full force, that's a takeaway in itself.
Exactly. It's not just about predicting. It's about exploring possibilities and pitfalls and, well, giving us tools to think with.
Okay, shifting focus a bit. From the future of machines back to Asimov's own past. The interview notes mention his experience as an immigrant.
Yes, and how he saw the American dream playing out for his own success. He reflects that being an immigrant didn't seem to interfere with his chances, not in education, not in his career later on. He felt the opportunities were genuinely there for him. And that dream, for him, it really boiled down to getting a good education and just having those opportunities available.
That's a powerful personal story of opportunity. But then the conversation takes a turn when he compares education then versus later in his life.
He does get more critical there.
Yeah.
Now, he makes a sharp distinction.
Yeah.
He absolutely believed that good education will always be valuable for success, always.
Okay.
But he was concerned it just wasn't as easy to get that good education later on compared to when he was young.
Okay, that's interesting. And did he give reasons for that shift, according to the notes?
He mentions pressures from increased population, sure, But he really lands hard on what he saw as a societal issue, America just not valuing education enough anymore.
Not valuing it. How did that manifest, in his view?
He talks about things like, not paying teachers well enough, not respecting the profession, and maybe a general unwillingness to really demand high standards or pay for the equipment and resources needed for those standards. He felt it was just too easy, politically and economically, to cut corners on schools.
That definitely echoes debates we still have today, doesn't it? About funding and teacher pay and all that. The actionable takeaway here seems to be that access to quality education isn't a given, and societal priorities can really impact it.
For sure. The interview also gets into that classic question: broad general education versus really deep specialization. Where did Asimover land on that?
Well, his answer is deeply shaped by his own life, naturally. He did specialize formally. He got a PhD in chemistry.
Right. But he argued passionately that just because you specialize in one area, that doesn't mean you ignore everything else. Broad knowledge is vital.
So how did he get that broad knowledge if he was focused on a chemistry PhD? What was his method, according to the notes?
His key was reading. Just wide, independent reading outside of school. Reading whatever interested him, voraciously.
So the actionable insight here isn't just read widely, it's that deliberate, self-directed learning, fueled by your own interests, that's the essential counterpoint to formal specialization.
Exactly. He credits this habit of widespread reading for allowing him to eventually write about almost any subject way beyond biochemistry. It wasn't an either-or thing for him at all. It was specialization plus self-cultivated general knowledge.
That self-cultivation point is fascinating. What actually motivated him then to build up such a huge knowledge base outside his PhD, to become that, polymath figure?
The source highlights two main drivers he mentioned. First, it was just sort of baked in from childhood. He was a huge reader, always at the public library, just reading anything and everything. That built this natural, deep curiosity.
Simple but profound, that early habit.
Totally. And the second thing was his deep interest in science fiction, which he started writing professionally very young. He figured out pretty quickly that to write the kind of science fiction he wanted, the kind that felt scientifically plausible.
Grounded, yeah, not just fantasy.
Right. He realized he had to stay informed broadly across basically all the branches of science. He couldn't just make stuff up entirely and have it feel real.
Yeah. Huh. So his writing passion directly fueled his need for diverse knowledge. The actionable insight there is that identifying your core passion can reveal what knowledge you need to acquire, even in seemingly unrelated fields. Purpose driving the learning.
Yeah, exactly. It reframes why he became a polymath. It wasn't just idle curiosity. It was a professional need driven by what he loved doing most.
Okay, let's shift gears again to his broader approach to success itself. How did Isaac Asimov think about goals? What was he actually aiming for, based on the interview notes?
He gives this answer that's almost disarmingly simple. He says his core goal was just to enjoy himself.
To enjoy himself, that's it. That feels, unexpected for someone so driven.
It does, doesn't it? But he explains it. He wrote so many books on so many different subjects, basically because he profoundly enjoyed the act of writing, and he enjoyed exploring all these different things. So he'd switch topics to keep it fresh, before he got bored.
So the sheer enjoyment of the process was the engine.
Yes, and he acknowledges he was incredibly lucky that publishers happened to want to publish the stuff he enjoyed writing. That alignment between his internal enjoyment and external demand was huge for him.
That brings up the whole luck thing. Asimov apparently mentions being lucky in the genetic sweepstakes. How much do you think success really comes down to luck versus things you can actually control?
He's pretty practical about luck. He thinks, yes, lots of opportunities just kind of happen. You can't always explain why. He tells that story about meeting the editor, John Campbell, really early on.
Ah, the famous story. Connecting with Campbell, who clearly had a knack for spotting talent, that was a clear stroke of luck for Asimov.
Totally. And then compounding that luck, he points to pure geography. He lived just a 10-cent subway ride away in Manhattan. He contrasts it, saying if he'd lived in, say, Nebraska or even Staten Island,
right,
that easy, frequent access to Campbell probably wouldn't have happened, and his whole career might have gone differently.
Wow. Location, 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 playing a literal role in a literary career. But he doesn't just leave it at it's all luck, does he? How does he balance that with personal agency? Things you can control.
No. He definitely insists that every person does have a lot of control. You can control how industrious you are, right? Your effort, your decision to stick with a goal, even when you face setbacks, your effort to educate yourself if your formal schooling wasn't enough.
Control over effort, resilience, continuous learning, those internal qualities.
Yes, exactly. Those are within your power. But he's also realistic. You can't just decide to be born with a certain talent if you don't have it, or decide to live in the perfect place at the perfect time if you don't. External factors are real and often random.
So what's the actionable takeaway from his view on luck versus control?
His takeaway seems to be that success comes from learning how to make the most of the breaks that do come your way. And that, he thinks, does involve character. It involves foresight, being ready to grab an opportunity when it shows up. You can't control the break appearing, but you can control being ready for it, being able to act on it.
Being alert and decisive when a door opens.
Yes, he even talks about the word opportunistic, which can sound kind of negative sometimes,
Yeah.
but he thinks it's actually necessary. You have to recognize an opportunity when you see it and be willing and ready to seize it, even if it wasn't part of your original grand plan.
Okay, so considering all these pieces, enjoyment, luck, control, seizing opportunity, if you had to pick one thing, what does Asimov suggest might be the most critical element for success based on the interview?
He sort of hesitates, but the quality that seems to come to his mind first is determination.
Determination. Why that one above others?
His reasoning is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Very few people achieve significant success without much effort. Almost everyone has to push through difficulties, face disappointments, overcome disadvantage.
Right. It's easy to give up when things get tough.
That's the natural inclination, isn't it? He really stresses that it takes real inner strength, real determination, just to keep going, to get over those hurdles, the actionable insight. Determination isn't just a virtue, it's the necessary fuel for navigating the inevitable challenges on the path to success.
So determination can even outweigh talent sometimes, in his view.
He feels that without determination, yes, even if you have a lot of talent, it might not actually lead anywhere. It just fizzles out. And he mentions hearing this from lots of successful people in different fields. They often credit perseverance, determination right up there at the top.
Without that grit, the other factors might not actually turn into success. Just stick with it, basically.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about how he actually worked then, because his output was just immense. He was famously diligent, always beating deadlines. How did he manage that level of productivity?
He talks about starting as a professor, but his writing success grew until he shifted to full-time writing. And yeah, that incredible diligence was a hallmark. Why was beating deadlines so important to him?
He saw it as a huge professional advantage. I mean, from an editor's perspective, authors are often late. Being early was like a gift less stress for them.
A practical tactic for managing relationships.
Definitely. He felt it put him in a really good position. He wasn't adding to their problems. He even wondered if editors might have subconsciously thought better of his work or just liked him more because of that reliable early delivery. The actionable takeaway there is professionalism in the mechanics of work delivery can build crucial relationships and positive perceptions, sometimes in really subtle ways.
So how did he do it? Was it some complicated system?
He says, no, not really complicated. He was naturally methodical, kept lists, tracked deadlines, started early, but he points to something even more fundamental than just being organized.
Yes, the underlying drive.
The real piece of luck, as he puts it, wasn't just being organized. It was that he genuinely enjoyed the act of writing, the physical and mental process.
Unlike many writers, apparently, who find it a struggle.
Exactly. He knew lots of writers, maybe more talented even, who found writing psychologically hard. They'd procrastinate, stress about deadlines. But for him, sitting down to write wasn't a chore. It was actually a pleasure. He never had to force himself. Sometimes his problem was having to delay tasks just to fit the schedule.
Wow. Diligence driven by pleasure, not just pure discipline. He gives that example of writing magazine articles, finished his 330th, already 3 weeks ahead, simply because he liked doing it.
That's a powerful combination. The actionable insight. Finding or cultivating enjoyment in the process of your work can be a far more sustainable and potent driver of diligence and productivity than sheer willpower alone.
Did technology change things for him? Because he wrote through that transition from typewriters to word processors.
Yes, he eventually got a word processor and found it helpful, yeah. Faster for shorter things like articles, because editing without retyping was so much easier.
Right.
But for longer works, like novels, he actually stuck with starting on a typewriter. Out of habit, he said, liking the feel of the paper.
Kind of a hybrid approach then.
Yeah. But even with the typewriters, he then transferred the final version to the word processor because it made a much cleaner final copy.
Which again goes back to that practical professionalism, doesn't it?
Right. Looking professional to the editors, potentially contributing to that positive impression. It's fascinating how he consistently tied his methods back to managing those relationships and presenting his work well.
When he looked at his own writing, though, how did he analyze it? Did he think, yeah, I'm a great writer?
He was surprisingly pragmatic, almost humble about it. He said he wasn't sure he was a very good judge of his own work quality. Everything just read fine to him.
Yeah.
He was often a little surprised when editors and readers were really happy with it.
Really? He wasn't inherently confident in the quality.
Doesn't sound like it, no. Not in a way that made him complacent anyway. He actually says that self-doubt or that lack of certainty was probably a good thing for him.
Why? How so?
Because if he ever started thinking too highly of his writing, he worried he might ease up. Stop trying quite so hard.
So he preferred to run scared.
That's the phrase he uses, a great memorable phrase. He felt it was better to run scared, constantly push himself to do his best, rather than get complacent thinking he was brilliant. The actionable insight. Sometimes a healthy dose of self-doubt can be a powerful motivator to maintain effort and high standards.
Run scared. That's quite a takeaway for staying motivated over the long haul. Okay, so if some young, aspiring writer cornered him, asked for just one piece of quick advice based on everything, what would he tell them?
He gives a really direct two-part answer in the notes. Basically, develop a thick skin against disappointment and don't allow yourself to give up.
Short, sharp, and circles right back to that determination point from earlier, doesn't it? The actionable insight is pretty stark. Resilience isn't optional, it's fundamental.
Absolutely. Acknowledging setbacks will happen, and cultivating resilience is just crucial.
Finally, the notes touched briefly on his future plans at the time of the interview. What was next for Asimov then?
He said he didn't really have major new goals, mostly just planned to keep doing what he enjoyed, which was writing.
More books, presumably.
Yeah, he mentioned upcoming novels like Robots of Empire and Foundation and Earth. His publisher wanted a novel a year. He does note that that requirement was a bit of a constraint. He actually found novels harder work than nonfiction or shorter pieces.
He found the shorter stuff more enjoyable to write.
Right. But the novels were maybe more important for his career or what the market wanted at the time. He saw them as making readers and publishers happy, and they probably contributed more to his conventional success or reputation compared to the shorter work, even if the process wasn't his absolute favorite.
An interesting trade-off there between personal enjoyment and market demands or conventional success markers. And he finishes by kind of reflecting that the breaks or the luck couldn't always be with him. He found writing those required novels particularly challenging. That wasn't an area where he felt particularly lucky or where the enjoyment always flowed easily.
What a journey through the mind of a true intellectual powerhouse. We've really delved into these notes from the Asimov interview.
And pulled out wisdom that feels remarkably current, doesn't it? From using sci-fi to think about AI safety and frameworks, to his very personal, practical takes on education and opportunity.
Yeah, and that crucial balance of specialization and self-directed broad reading.
And his deeply pragmatic yet somehow philosophical approach to success.
It's such a powerful blend, isn't it? Acknowledging the role of luck, absolutely, but then fiercely focusing on cultivating those internal drivers. Determination, readiness for opportunity, that strategic diligence, fueled by finding enjoyment.
Yeah, that enjoyment piece seems incredibly key. It wasn't just about being brilliant. It was about applying that intelligence with purpose, persistence, and, well, pleasure.
Exactly. And it leaves us with that striking core idea Asimov seemed to live by. His main goal was just to enjoy the process of working. And that enjoyment fueled an output that was, well, staggering and historically successful, even when the specific type of writing he liked best wasn't always the most conventionally rewarded. Kind of makes you rethink what success even means, doesn't it?
It really does. So we've explored this idea of AI as a co-pilot for becoming more of you, and we've journeyed through Asimov's perspective on what drives human potential and success.
And how do these seemingly disparate ideas connect? Well, both point towards the importance of growth, resilience, and finding purpose or enjoyment in the work itself, especially as the world changes so rapidly around us. It's about cultivating the inner landscape alongside navigating the outer one, whether that's interacting with AI or building a career.
So here's a thought to leave you with. Given both the idea of fusing your own growth with AI and Asimov's emphasis on determination fueled by finding enjoyment in the process, how might actively seeking joy and purpose in your daily work alongside leveraging new tools like AI, fundamentally change your trajectory towards becoming more of who you're meant to be.
And maybe more practically, what small step could you take this week to integrate more enjoyment or focused, self-directed learning, perhaps even AI-assisted, into your routine? Definitely something to chew on.